So good morning, everyone. This is our second day of this 4-day retreat here at the Franciscan Center in Tampa, becoming intimate with life. We could say through the practice of moment-to-moment mindfulness. Let me just see what this is about for a moment. So we are through the guidance of the Buddha, this 2,600-year-old teaching. We are pulling back, we are sort of peeling the onion, we could say, peeling back the layers so we can really understand more clearly who and what we are and what's really going on. If we don't know who and what we are, and if we don't know what's really going on, we'll put that together for a life. I don't know who I am, and I really don't know what's going on. And yet, this is the way most people live life. No wonder, for many people, it is the mess it is. And why there is so much suffering. So the Buddha's teaching, as opposed to giving us what is often given to us by religion, which is something to believe in, right? Something that tells us who we are, and something that tells us what this life is about, and tells us very clearly, do this, don't do that. The Buddha did something very different. He gave us the tools to explore this life. He gave us the tools of meditation, of mindfulness, of insight, of looking deeply, so we could explore this life for ourselves and come up with our own understanding of who and what we are and what really is going on in this life. So this is why the path of awakening, as enunciated by the Buddha, is a very different path than what is offered in most religions. And again, I am not saying that's bad or good. I'm just saying most beings who become somewhat conscious want a few answers. Most people want somebody else to give them the answers. But the Buddha never did that. He gave his students questions for them to answer, and gave them the technology to help them answer that. And that is really what we're doing here with these 4 foundations of mindfulness. And as I said before, he kind of is going in the reverse order than most of us, would like it, right? Most of us see our issues as being problems of the mind and emotions, and we say, hey, right, give me the answers there. And the Buddha doesn't do that. Maybe because that is the problem. That we are so completely identified with our thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories. Right? We are so deeply identified with the activities of the mind no wonder we are so lost. Right. So the Buddha makes us uncomfortable and a little frustrated. Right? He says, don't even look at that now. Have you noticed that you have a body? Right? I mean, it's interesting because if you look around the room, I'm looking around the room, you can look around the room, what is the most obvious thing about other people? Have you noticed? They have bodies. Right? I mean, of that we can be assured, right? What's going on inside their minds, we have no idea, and we probably don't even want to know. But do you see? I mean, what's most obvious is we have bodies. And yet, even though this is the most obvious and noticeable aspect of life, our relationship to the physical universe is very confused, we might say. And again, our relationship to our own body, again, is also confused because we view our body as an object around which we have many conceptions and perceptions. And since, again, the most obvious, again, aspect of what it means to be a human being is what? Not only that we have bodies, but we make contact to the world through our bodies. Right? How do you make contact with the world? We see. Body. We hear. Body. We smell. Body. We taste. Body. We sense. Body. Right? I mean, this is the life of a human being. And yet, right, we're not in touch with that. And many of us, we don't even almost notice it. Because even the life of the body, not just that the physical body is perceived as something other than us, that's something to be seen as an object to be manipulated, that is surrounded by endless conceptions and perceptions. But even our senses are not allowed to function purely. Because our minds are constantly interpreting everything we see, hear, smell, taste, right? So the Buddha turns it on its head and goes, first wake-up call. Right? What we received yesterday was a wake-up call. For some people, it was a reminder, a strong reminder once again. But for many of us sitting here, it could have been the first time we really got this wake-up call. And so we spent yesterday a very short time, but enough at least to get our toes wet, noticing and exploring the body from the inside, what it's like to be in a body from the inside, to move around in a body, to eat with a body, to see with a body, all these kinds of things. As well as last night, we looked more deeply into aspects of the body that are not so readily apparent, such as the body is subject to coming into being and dissolving. The body is impermanent, subject to change. We took the body apart into its parts, and we saw that this thing we call the body is not really one thing, but just a component of many, many, many different parts that could be seen and noticed. And to really get it about where this body is heading, all bodies, everybody's body, we did the cemetery dissolution meditation last night. So we could really understand that this body, seemingly so fresh and alive and permanent, is really something that is impermanent, interdependent, dependent on its parts, made up of many, many things and dependent on many, many things, and is subject to dissolution, and as well it does not contain a self. It is selfless. In our imagined autopsy of our body last night, we did not find a part called the self, right? We found livers and hearts and lungs and sinews and bones, brains and central nervous system. You know, we found all kinds of parts. Did anybody find a part called a body? I mean, called a self, that we might have missed last night? In my very simplistic view of life, if I'm looking for something and it cannot be found after really careful looking, then I would have to conclude that it is not there. To me, that's just logical. So we also discovered that. So again, I would say the Buddha is up to something. And there is something very profound for us to learn. That perhaps rather than always living in this part of our body, just a tiny part of the body, that we begin to notice that we have the life of the body is much larger, and that it is constantly, it is alive, and it is constantly sharing with us its life. But unless we are mindful of it, we will never notice it, and therefore we will be what is called in Zen ghosts. We will lead a ghostly existence. A ghost is someone who what? Who doesn't have a body anymore. That's the life of a ghost. It's disembodied. It kind of floats around. But for those of you who've seen ghost movies, you know that when you try to grab the ghost or something, there's nothing there, even though it appears like there's something there. So, according to the teachings, many of us live our lives like ghosts, disembodied spirits, lost in the ethers of thought, without any true ground. Is that clear? So even though we are moving on today to the second establishment of mindfulness, this does not mean that we have left this wonderful practice of being in the body, awareness of the body in the body. and really making that a watchword for how we live. Again, it is not, many people think mindfulness of the body and mindfulness of the breath is like a lifesaver, right? Many people practice that way, right? When they get in trouble and they're drowning, they grab onto the lifesaver, right? I mean, that's good if you're drowning, to have something to grab onto to save you. But I would think it would make more sense to learn how to swim. That way, the next time you fall in the water, you know what to do. You don't need a lifesaver. In the same way, if we learn to live in reality and not in our thoughts about our reality, you won't need a lifesaver so much. You won't have to come back, right? We say, well, I got to keep coming back. Well, that's good. But the object is to stop leaving. Is that clear? That's what the practice is about. To stop leaving, to dwell here. So again, please understand that the Buddha did not begin with mindfulness of the body because, that's the easiest. Right? He began there because there's a profound truth that is learned through practicing full awareness of the body, establishing oneself in that kind of awareness, both as a meditative practice, but as you remember from yesterday, for those of you who might think that Thich Nhat Hanh made up mindful eating, stuff like that, you realize yesterday, no, the Buddha taught this. He didn't just teach mindfulness of the body, informal walking meditation and sitting meditation, right, informal practice. He very clearly said, when moving about, when eating, when defecating, when urinating, when bathing, right? He very clearly said that in all the activities of life, one practices mindfulness of the body, in the body. So before we move on to our second establishment today, is there anything that is not clear about the practice of the body and the breath? Good. Now, what we're going to get into today is quite profound. And it is something that I think is a unique contribution to really understanding ourselves, and it is an aspect of the body-mind connection that I think is really very much unknown in the West. Obviously, our own psychology, which is a fairly recent thing in the West, not 2,600 years of experience like in Buddhism. It's maybe 100 years old, a little more, fairly recent. But it is primarily, connected to the thoughts and feelings and emotions of the mind and the connection to behavior. And even though there are various kinds of psychological systems that are really not mainstream, but have certainly been around over the year that help connect people to body awareness. And again, yoga now is in, so that's also a thing that people are helping to learn to connect with their body. The connection of the body-mind and the mechanism of interrelationship is really not clear, because I think this next piece of understanding has been missing. So please pay close attention. So the next, So the next observation, the next establishment, she remains established in the observation of the feelings in the feelings, and again, diligent, with clear understanding, mindful, having abandoned every craving and every distaste for this life. Okay, so please establish yourself in equanimity. Be mindful as we begin to study this section. And so in the sutra, the Buddha begins this section by saying, how does a practitioner remain established in the observation of the feelings in the feelings? And let me just read it and then we will discuss it. And he says, whenever the practitioner has a pleasant feeling, there is awareness, I am experiencing a pleasant feeling. Whenever they're having a painful feeling, they are aware, I am experiencing a painful feeling. Whenever they experience a feeling which is neither pleasant nor painful, they are aware, I am experiencing a neutral feeling. When they experience a pleasant feeling based in the body, they are aware, I am experiencing a pleasant feeling based in the body. When they experience a pleasant feeling based in the mind, they're aware, I am experiencing a pleasant feeling based in the mind. When they experience a painful feeling based in the body, they're aware, I am experiencing a painful feeling based in the body. When they experience a painful feeling based in the mind, they are aware, I am experiencing a painful feeling in the mind. When they're experiencing a neutral feeling based in the body, they are aware, I am experiencing a neutral feeling based in the body. When they're experiencing a neutral feeling based in the mind, they're aware, I am experiencing a neutral feeling based in the mind. Well, let me just say something about this before we go to the second paragraph. The Sanskrit word that is being translated as feeling is Vedana. Those of you who came to the Anapanasati, the Sutra on Full Awareness of the Breath, maybe 3-4 years ago, remember Vedana. We have come back to Vedana. What is Vedana? It is not either sensation, nor is it emotion. So this is important because, again, people are translating a word and they're going feeling. But again, for many people in our language, feeling, we kind of go feeling, it means emotions, right? But he's not talking about emotions. Okay. So we begin with a body, let's say. Body's probably easier, right? Through the body, eyes, the body has 5 senses. It sees, it hears, it smells, it tastes, and it feels, it senses, right? Through the skin, internally too. Okay. What the 5 senses do is they make contact with an object, right? Eyes make contact with sights, we could say, right? Eyes don't make contact with smells, right? Eyes don't make contact with tastes. Eyes make contact with objects that they see. The nose makes contacts with odors. The ears make contact with sounds, right? Tongue makes contact with tastes, with something. It tastes something. And the skin makes contact with various kinds of feelings. It makes contact with cool, hot, you know what I'm saying, things like that. Is that clear? So we have 5 senses in the body, and they make contact. Okay. Now, what is often not understood because of the lack of mindfulness is when a sense make a sense organ or a sense consciousness makes contact with its object, there is immediately a feeling tone. Right? And that feeling tone is experienced, putting it into words, as pleasant, unpleasant, or neither. Pleasant or unpleasant. That is profound. Because from that initial, often unconscious sensation, everything else unfolds, positively, negatively, or in terms of indifference. I mean, don't worry. We will talk about that. Okay. The way I understand, the way I can easily understand pleasant, right? A pleasant feeling when it makes contact with an object is something that we would, if we asked ourselves, do you want this to continue? You would say what? Yes. Okay. So in contact with any of your senses, make contact with something, if you ask yourself, is this okay? Would I like this to continue? And if you said yes, you would go, oh, pleasant feeling. That's it. There's no perception in this. There's no interpretation. There's no story. Is that clear? It's a simple, it's like if I touched this, if I poured the tea and I touched it, and it was hot, too hot for me, I would what? Put it down. Right? It is unpleasant. Unpleasant means what? It's the opposite of pleasant. So if I want to end that sensation, if I want to get away from it, I would call that negative or unpleasant. Is that clear? That which is neither, we would say, is neutral. Right? So if I pick up the tea and it's just right, I'm actually drinking an empty thing. But this is for demonstration purposes only. Now that's interesting. I mean, is just doing it like that, would I consider this unpleasant? No. Right? But I would probably consider it neutral, right? I mean, it's not something, it's neither pleasant or unpleasant. I could continue it, but I could not continue it. On the other hand, if I picked it up and it was too hot, right, that immediate thing, I would put it down. Right? On the other hand, if it was just right, I would enjoy drinking it. That action and reaction on my part is all based on what? Vedana. It's happening like that. It's almost simultaneous to a contact. Vedana arises. Is that clear? Now we'll talk. This is profound and simple. Let me look around the room here. Some people are in their short sleeves. Some people are in long sleeves. Some people are in long sleeves and sweaters and jackets. Right? Right? There's only one temperature in here. Right? Objectively, whatever it is, that's what it is. Right? But in the contact of our skin to this, air, some people are perceiving it as what? Pleasant. Tim says, this is great. Nancy's back there going, what?
Cold.
Cold. Right? Unpleasant. Right? I got to do something. I want to stop that unpleasant sensation. Right? Other people, I don't know where you are. Is that clear? That's Vedana. why people are but we don't, we don't understand that that's, again, simultaneous. At the same time as, or maybe there's a nanosecond or a few in between, but basically in terms of consciousness, it happens immediately with a sense contact, which is the body and the organs contacting something. There is this vedana. Is that clear? We go into the dining room, and we have what is called a riotous Vedana experience. You didn't know that's what you were having. Right? You might even before you get in there, you might be smelling something and might be going, or neutral, right? And then you get in there and you look at things, right? And you might notice as you look at things, some things you immediately go what? Right? You're drawn to it, right? Other things you look at, right? And other things, you could or you couldn't, right? Okay. Is that clear? That's what's going on. It's all Vedana. It's all that immediacy, and we don't know that. We think there's something like significant here. I'm sorry to disabuse you of it, but it's just Vedana. And you know what? As we learned yesterday about the life of the body, and as we learned that it is not under our control, that it has a life of our own, the breath has a life of its own, Vedana, the arousal of feelings, has a life of their own. They are a river, right? Yesterday, somebody shared that when we started doing the morning chanting service, they immediately, right, Roger? They immediately went, right? Vedana, right? Was it even before you thought anything? There was like this visceral, that's Vedana. Right? You didn't make it happen, did you? Right. That's Vedana. Right? But, there's all kinds of Vedana, right? It's just everywhere. But does everybody get it? I mean, every one of your senses, your ears, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, you hear us, right? You hear, you turn on your music, you turn on the radio, and you're very happy and, right? You're like listening to it, right? Right? You like that music. You're meditating, your neighbor's blasting the same music, and you go, what? Negative. Disturbing me. What's the same music, isn't it? Conditioning. Vedana. Some people, all kinds of Vedana. People have Vedana about bugs, right? Some people, you even mentioned the word bug. They're get me out of here, right? Some people, bugs flying around, before you know it, they're flailing, right? I haven't even looked to see what it is. It could be just black spots before the eye, or it could be a sweet little moth or something. But we some people in Florida, right, see a cockroach or even say the word cockroach, right? People are running for the raid, right? Right, or running out. It's Vedana. I mean, it controls us, right? Vedana is very powerful. It has a circuitry that is different than our conscious mind. That's why it can be so dangerous. You might have just been to your physician. He's just told you you're 40 pounds overweight. You need to go on a diet and exercise more, change your diet, stop eating fats because you are at risk now because of your age for increased risk of heart disease, stroke, right? Those of us who are getting older, we hear these things from our doctors, right? And then your friend says, "Hey, Sam, you want to get some ice cream?" And Sam, his immediate response to getting ice cream is what? Oh, yeah. It's like Vedana. Right? It's Vedana. Right? It's like before, it just, don't even have to think. It's just our association immediately, right? So again, it is easier to understand in relationship to the body, but notice in the second line the Buddha says what? There is Vedana of the body, and there is Vedana of the mind. Right? There is Vedana within the five senses that are located in the body, but in Buddhist psychology, the mind is a sense organ. And the mind, the object of the mind are thoughts, feelings, perceptions. Those are its objects. And in the same way, our mind is subject to Vedana. We will be exploring, that thing you might find as meditators, it's called distracting thoughts. Anybody ever come across any of those? Getting lost in stories, and right? Have you ever wondered why you're attracted to certain thoughts? That you find them so pleasant to dwell on? Vedana. Yeah. We may be with somebody and they say something. And immediately we what? We might what? We react immediately. And we may react in what? Or positive. Right? So they may be saying something, we like what they're saying. It's like, continue. Right? They're saying things that we like. Vedana. We don't even know it, but that's why we continue. Other somebody might be saying something that we do not like. We don't want them to be saying that. Right? We think they should be saying this. So we have immediately what? Negative Vedana. When we have negative Vedana, we what? We don't want it to continue. We want to stop it. That's the response. Right. We may have that to feelings. Right? Many of people, when I have this feeling, I like this feeling. When I have this feeling, I don't like this feeling. Ooh, I want to stop feeling this one. Right? It's all Vedana. There is when a object is presented to a sense, including the mind, when contact is made, unconsciously there is this positive, negative, neutral response that is unconscious. The problem is what we don't realize this is the prime mover of our emotional life, our cognitive life, and our behavioral life. Okay, when we have a positive feeling tone to something, we what? We want to move toward it. We want it to continue. There is attraction. Right? This movement toward this attraction can lead to grasping at. Right? Because those pleasant, positive experiences, sensations, whatever, we want them to what?
Continue.
We want them to continue, which is a problem in a world of impermanence. But we're going to make a good effort, aren't we? By God, we're going to make a good effort. I'm going to grab onto this. Right? I'm going to cling to this. I'm going to attach to this because I want this thing that I perceive as positive to continue forever and ever. Right? Maybe some professional ice cream eaters here know the feeling when they get to the bottom of the carton and realize it's come to an end. I can't keep it going any longer. Right? The hunger has been satisfied probably many scoops ago. And yet we have continued because why? Because we want to keep that positive experience going. And whether it's ice cream, whether it's relationships, whether it's emotions, whether it's, all kinds of things. So that's the danger. Can you see? It will blossom in our life, and it will lead to, again, clinging, attachment, grasping, all aspects of our life that will cause suffering. It will lead to acting out. It will lead to all kinds of behaviors which will cause us suffering. On the other hand, right, when we are experiencing negative vedana, we immediately want to what? What? We want to stop it. We want to push it away. We want to get away from it. We want to escape. We want to control. All kinds of, right? Out of that can come what? Anger, fear, and again, that has its own chain too, of how it enters our emotions, our thoughts, and our behavior. And we don't realize that this is all stemming from this initial positive, negative, or neutral. And again, the neutral is very significant too, because we'd probably say that is probably most of our moment-to-moment experience is probably neutral. But neutrality, if it's unconscious, can lead to what? Indifference, boredom. Right? Again, mind states that have consequences in our life. The only thing that will reveal Vedana to us is mindfulness. We are talking about, in most cases, what might be called, in our terms, responses that have been conditioned unconsciously in life. I mean, why? Now, see, look at Nancy back there. She's taken off her shawl. She's become comfortable, right? She's become comfortable, right? Now, why do you think it is, somebody up here has short sleeves on, right? And somebody else has sweaters on. Why does one person perceive it one way? Why does one person perceive it another way? Why does one person like this food and another person hate that food? But the person who hates that food likes their food, and the hates that. Why is that? Is there something intrinsic in the food? Right? Is there something intrinsic in 76 degrees that makes it unbearable for some people and wonderful for others? We would have to say, not really. It's conditioning, right? Over time. Why don't I like this, and why do I like that? Why do I think people should be this way and shouldn't be that way? Right? People should know better. People say, right? I know better. Which is only saying what? What I'm conditioned to is right, and what you're conditioned to is wrong. This is a world of causes and conditions. We have been conditioned from birth. Because over time, we have developed lots and lots and lots of Vedana. Some mild, some quite strong. Have you noticed that? Some things are just visceral. Right? Some things much milder. So, because Vedana does not rest in Vedana, but very quickly blossoms into thoughts, feelings, behaviors, emotions, actions, reactions, activity, words, right? Just like that. It needs to be attended to. So that is why in between the body, full establishment of the body in the body, and the third establishment, full establishment of mindfulness of the mind in the mind, there is this feelings. Is that clear? This is the connector. Any questions? Yes, Tim.
Could you spell the word Vedana?
Oh, it's Vedana.
Nothing to do with generosity.
No, that's Dana.
Yeah, no, I know that.
Okay, yeah. This is Vedana. I mean, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, so I don't know the etymology, but it's Vedana. Again, like we know, these are words that have multiple meanings in the original language. And when they're translated, translators have to choose among, let's say, English words. And again, the problem with a word like Vedana, it's not, you see a lot of translation, they'll go, they used to call it sensations a lot, but it's really not sensations. Sensations are really about, the contact. In other words, I could say, my contact with this, I have the sensation right now of it's kind of warm, you know what I mean? It's a sensation. But that perception of it is, or that experience of it is pleasant or unpleasant, is kind of the next step. But we see it as in the contact. It's really not. In Buddhist psychology, it happens. It appears simultaneous, but it's really just connected. Yes.
I understand the body and the body, but in Buddhist psychology, if the mind is also a sense organ, how can it be a connector if, when you touch something, your thoughts about, or you see something, and your thoughts about that visual is a thought, which stems in the mind, how can it be a connector if it's all Vedana?
Because the original, because there, let's say there is a pleasant response at the level of feeling tone, right? Therefore, when it moves into the realm of thought and emotions, we are on that pleasant track. We have positive thoughts, right? So in other words, do you have a pet?
Yeah.
What do you have?
Cat.
A cat. So if you visualize your cat, what is the Vedana? Pleasant. Okay. So I would imagine that most of your thoughts around your cat are positive.
But that's my mind.
Okay, hold on a second. George Bush. Okay, just imagine George Bush, President Bush. What's your Vedana?
Vedana?
No, just how do you, your visceral response to that? Is that, what, negative? I mean, would you like to continue saying that name over and over again? And okay, so we'd say it is negative. Okay. I would therefore imagine that most of your thoughts about George Bush, President Bush, fall on the negativity side. Okay. You will notice that it is very rare that you have positive thoughts about something you have negative Vedana toward, and vice versa. Vedana is more elemental than thoughts and perceptions. In the realm of Buddhist psychology, first there is the contact, then there is the feeling tone, and then there is the realm of perception. Again, we don't see that connector, and how strong that connector is in driving our thoughts, our feelings, and our behavior. If I said to you, if you could imagine, Nancy, working on your Vedana around President Bush and your cat, right? If you began to think about your cat with all its negative qualities, it must have some. So if you really dwelled on that significantly, might your Vedana, your feeling tone when you encounter your cat, begin to change? Yeah. On the other hand, if you began to change the way you thought about President Bush, looked at his strength, his good qualities, his et cetera, the next time somebody said George Bush to you, you might go, well, I mean, it could be neutral. See what I'm saying? So it's like that. So not only is it important that we understand this positive, negative, and neutral piece in our minds and how they lead us down different roads, but from the point of view of mindfulness practice, what we just said is essential, which is if I am mindful of, if I am aware of the feeling tone, I have the possibility of what? Of changing, of reconditioning. Right? So it's like everything else in our practice, mindfulness turns on the light, right? We can now see what's there. And then we have the possibility and capability, if we want, to change. Because we understand what? There's nothing inherently wrong with 78 degrees. Is there? Right? since you're nodding your head out, and since you are there like this with your sweater on, what if I said to you, MT, if you wanted to, you could take that sweater off. Could you take it off?
Yes.
Can we please take it off?
Really?
Yeah.
Just the sweater.
just take it off. There you go. All right. This is Zen. We're into the real thing, not just talking about it. All right. And just pull up your sleeves. Just going to roll up your sleeves. We're not going to take anything more. So don't worry. We're okay. How are you?
Fine.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not picking on you, but if I said, you know what? At the very worst, you might experience what? Or you would, but you just might experience a different sensation on your skin than when having your sweater on. I mean, is it unbearable? No. Right? When we had the sweater on, we thought it was unbearable. I got to keep this sweater on.
No.
Well, just play with me.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just using you as an example of,
Okay.
right? Because many of us, our life often is like that. We're always putting our sweater on, taking it off. Right? Then putting it back on, then taking it off. Then putting it back on, and, many people, how do we sit in the meditation hall? 1 minute we're like this, and the next 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 minute we're like this, and, right? Next minute we're up on the chair, next minute we're back down again. I'm not talking about you, Alex, I can see you back. But if the shoe fits, But if we ask what's going on, we would just have to say what? In my body, there's a certain sensation, right? We know that bodies are capable of feeling, right? Sensing. And the body is sensing something what? Something unpleasant. Right? Now, you have no idea, do you, whether the person next to you is experiencing the same sensation, let's say in their knees, right? Do you? And you don't know how pleasant or unpleasant or neutral that is, do you? All we know is for us at this moment, this is what? Unbearable. Right? And when we perceive a negative sensation, we know that we are driven unconsciously to what? To want to change, to get away from it, to make it different, to remediate it, to do something to get rid of it, to stop it. And so therefore we what? Change. But notice, for many people, before they change, what do? They create a little drama, right? Some people create a lot of drama. All that's going on in the body is there is a sensation that is registering unconsciously and as negative. Right? From that comes thoughts that are going on where? In the mind. I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. I mean, can you imagine the hubris of the mind? Right? This is going on in the knee. It has nothing to do with you. But the mind goes, I don't like this. Right? And then what? I don't know how much more of this I can take. great damage may be done to my knees in this moment. When's that SOB up front going to ring that bell? Just doing it on purpose. Just torturing me. That's just for starters. All because what? Because we have an unpleasant sensation. That's just a little example of what we do all the time. Right? You know, we see somebody that we have because of our conditioning, we have a negative response to, and right away it starts. Right? We see somebody that we have a positive or a pleasant response to, and right away the other one starts. And we get the world nicely divided up, and most people we're indifferent to. And we never stop to look to see this whole inner dialogue, and all these stories we tell ourselves, and all the feelings we generate, and then the words we speak are all based on what? This conditioning that can be unconditioned, reconditioned at all times. Why do we want to do that? So we can be more equanimous, calmer, generate good feelings inside on an ongoing basis. So again, there is the Vedana, or this feeling, positive, negative, and neutral, which means either positive and negative, that is going on all the time. And you will be noticing that today. That's what we'll be doing in the realm of our five senses and in the realm of our mind. Yes.
Yeah, it's always impressive to me how sophisticated the Buddha was 2,600 years ago. Just from observation, he didn't know that the eye doesn't see. He didn't know that the ear doesn't hear. I mean, the eye is just a wavelength refractor. It gathers up photons. It doesn't see. You know, the ear just picks up vibrations in these little hairs. But he didn't know that. But he had observed it and understood that this was all being processed at a higher level. So they knew it through, meditative inquiry. I mean, in the Abhidhamma, they talk about atoms. I mean, they have a word that is translated as atoms. I mean, they said there is a substratum of these little kind of energy particles that are moving around. I mean, they didn't have microscopes. They didn't have electronic microscopes. They had this profound, introspective, meditative quality that they could actually perceive the way things really were. And because they had a lot of time, and they hadn't read a lot of books, they were very open to discovery, and they spent lifetimes just in the meditative tradition, just exploring the human mind, experience, the senses, the sense objects, and discovered all this. Exactly. Yes.
So if the response to an aching knee can be reconditioned, can a response to a more powerful pain be reconditioned, and if so, how?
Again, when you talk about, so the question is, how, sort of saying, I understand at the level of uncomfortability and achiness and all that, but how about things that are much more acute, much more painful? Again, we are talking about a sensation that is arising in the body, that is it is a function of the sense organ of feeling in the body that feels a sensation. It is not the eye, it is not the ear, it is not the nose, it is not the mouth. It is this quality of sensing that the body has, whether internal or on the surface or inside, that allows it to make contact, right? And in that moment of contact, right, the contact is pure. The contact is purely the contact, right? But as we say, there is this almost immediate Vedana, positive, negative, and neutral. Okay. From that, the mind will then generate positive and negative thoughts, perceptions, stories, emotions, actions that will all come from that. So obviously, the most primal intervention is to perceive that initial negative response and to change it.
To a neutral?
Well, that's moving it over significantly. Thich Nhat Hanh, if you read his Transformation and Healing, he actually spends a lot of time talking about moving a lot of neutral into positive, and even experimenting with moving negative into positive, such as we just said to Nancy, where she could begin to develop lots of negative Vedana about her cat and lots of positive Vedana about President Bush by going through this process of reconditioning, right? That over time may actually lead to a very elemental change. So, at the very, again, we're talking basic. We're talking about a level of mindfulness that is able to catch things at very elemental levels. You see, that's what we're talking about. Sort of what Alice was saying. Gee, how these guys figure this out? Well, they caught it right then. In their meditative clarity and in their deep looking, they were able to just perceive this unfolding of how actually experience develops in terms of these realms of senses and feeling tone and thought, and okay. At the very elemental level, there is a sensation. At the level of sensation, how would you describe the sensation that you're calling acute pain? Just as a sensation. No description. This is, it's hard because it's all tangled.
You want a description?
Yeah, just very simple of experience. Burning.
In the head that goes down.
Okay, so there is, don't even call nerve. You say, so burning, there's a burning on the side of the body. Yeah.
And internal, a shakiness that is unbalancing.
Do a little better there. What's actually being experienced when you say a shakiness?
It feels like I'm wobbling inside my eye and in my head, and I get nausea, and
So this is kind of like movement or something. It's like a movement.
Like an internal movement.
Right. Okay. So there is a burning, and there is a movement. Okay. That's the sensations that your body is experiencing.
The movement instead of yuck.
Yeah. Okay. So there's movement, and there is burning. Okay. Those are sensations.
So just characterize them as what they are immediately.
Well, because if not, what will happen immediately is the negative, yuck, here it goes again. And even the here it goes again is based on a conditioning around everything. So even the here it goes again is an elaboration of just what's happening. And then, from that could we go, oh my God, and what's ever going to happen to me? And is this ever going to end? And I wonder if I'm going to have to live with this my whole life. And you know what I mean? And the doctor, blah, 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 and they're all a bunch of quacks, or you know what I mean? And, right? I mean, and that's just for starters. That's like in 30 seconds I can do that. I mean, give me some days to work on it. You see, and it can be right. And yet it all began with this this sensation that went into the negative category. And again, please remember, the characteristic is when something is perceived as negative, we want to what?
Stop it.
Stop it or get away from it. Right? It's very simple. And all that elaboration is our attempts to do that. Many people, for example, people say, well, I spend all my time up in my head. Well, oftentimes we spend all our time up in our head because we don't want to feel. This I enjoy. Right? Oh, I don't enjoy that. So many people are much more comfortable in their thoughts, in their stories, rather than really sharing with you what they're feeling, because they don't. Right? So when you understand this way of looking at things, all of a sudden we look at a lot of kind of normal behavior and go, well, maybe there's something going on here. Right? Yeah. Now again, the answer, is not to pursue, some kind of relief, if possible. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and all that good stuff. But we're now talking at a very elemental, very personal level. The person who's experiencing this, whether it's a disease or whether it's a structural thing or whatever is going on in the body, it's at that level. And again, we know that there is, in the whole world of pain management, which has become a lot more sophisticated in the last 20, 30 years, that the way the pain, quote-unquote, message is being received has a lot to do with how it's being experienced. There's a subjective quality. And again, this is, 2,600 years ago, this is, this is what was understood. Right. That, that how we then think about, perceive, the stories we tell, the emotions that then arise, the behaviors that we act are just increasing exponentially our suffering of something that already was painful. In Buddhism, that's called what? That's shooting arrows into a place where already there is an arrow. It's like, already you got the arrow. Already you got the physical, negative physical sensation. But then we just keep shooting more arrows in there, enhancing the suffering. Yeah, thank you. Again, this is, mindfulness of Vedana, mindfulness of these feelings, and to be able to catch it, which is what I want you guys to be doing today, we're all going to be doing today, is a very deep practice. It takes a lot of kind of unlearning and a lot of attending to something that we really just don't attend to. We've never attended to. We're lost in our thoughts. We're lost in the drama. We think that's what it's about. It's about the cockroach and not my Vedana around cockroaches. See, it's not about the ice cream. It's about Vedana. And how at that very elemental we relate to something that is pleasant. Do we pursue it even though consciously, when we are mindful and present, it is not good for us? I mean, what is addiction about? What? The constant pursuit to activate pleasure centers, even though it's destroying one. I mean, if that doesn't give you a sense, watch out for Vedana, nothing else will. Right? Yes.
I'm curious about an aspect of this.
for example, if you're having a positive Vedana, and
Well, let's talk concretely about. So, give me an example. So you're.
towards an infant,
Okay, so you're with an infant, or you're thinking about it. All right. So you're just an infant is brought to you, and immediately you feel you want this to continue.
right?
Everything is good. Yeah.
Right.
Positive Vedana.
Right.
Right.
So what I'm curious about is that I thought I heard you say that the suffering was coming because of attachment, but
Yeah.
you want to be attached to an infant.
Well, we might say, Barb, that there is a phenomenon called the attachment phenomena that we consider to be healthy and normal. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about unhealthy attachment. Attachment that attaches and doesn't let go. Attachment that manipulates for its own benefit. That's in Buddhism, attachment is not what you're talking about. Yeah, attachment means, it's like, I can like this book, right? But I don't have to, carry it around with me like this all the time, do I? I don't have to be, if for some reason I misplace it, right? Or if for some reason I lose it, or for some reason somebody takes it, I don't have to go on the warpath, do I? I don't have to curl up in a ball and start sobbing unconsolably, right? Because I've lost the most precious thing in the world, right? I don't have to go on the warpath to find out who took it and, let them know what I really think of them, do I? If I did all that, it's because I've taken this book, which is just a thing, and it is impermanent, and turned it into an object of my attachment. The suffering comes from the attachment. So even that baby that you have such pleasant Vedana for and are attached is also subject to impermanence. That baby can get sick. That baby can have health problems. That baby can have all kinds of issues when it grows up. And that baby could die too. And that's the truth too. And if we are overly attached, we will not be able to accept the truth. Because our attachment will override reality. So even when you work with mothers and infants, attachment we see as a positive quality, so they don't just let the baby just lay there when it's crying and hungry and wet. So there has to be some level of identification and attachment, but there can be over-attachment too, that will cause suffering. So that's what we're talking about. Is that clear? Good. Any other questions about Vedana? Yes.
Okay, I'm going to give you an example. So say...
Is this Stump the Teacher?
I know, I'm going to save that for a one-on-one.
Okay.
But don't ask me to take off my sweater.
Be prepared.
Okay. I'm prepared. I don't know if everybody else is. So if you have a person that you say it's a friend, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And this person is a friend of yours, and you have both kinds of Vedana,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have neutral too.
Mm-hmm.
But this person or this relationship with a friend can bring a very negative trigger
Mm-hmm.
of Vedana,
Mm-hmm.
negative.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're practicing mindfulness. So there was a direct experience with this.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't react, but you still had that negative Vedana. But in the past,
Mm-hmm.
I would retort
Mm-hmm.
and grab, right?
Right.
Okay, so I'm very excited about this.
Right. So let's just slow it down, Molly. So let's just slow it down.
All right.
Okay, so there is a person.
Right.
And you are acknowledging that, some things are immediately negative, some things are immediately positive, some things are immediately neutral, but there's also a lot of complexity depending on the situation. And right. So, but the bottom line is, even in those more complex situations, you're having this kind of visceral response or immediate response of negative. So
But I changed it.
You're right. Exactly. So you can change it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you change it? So you
react.
Okay. So you are now seeing that this negative, wanting to fix them, change them, get away from them, is just your conditioned response, so to say.
Kind of slowed it down.
And your mindfulness is just holding that. You're aware of this negative response, this has been activated.
It's like I'm rejecting that negative Vedana.
Well, again, you don't have to reject it. This is, where I'm kind of beginning with. Well, anyhow, here we are. So, because I really want, for a lot of the day, just to begin to notice it, because it is so difficult. But yeah, we just hold it in the beginning in mindfulness. Mindfulness is wonderful, but why? It doesn't judge. Mindfulness is just a light. Right? So we can be aware. Breathing in, I am aware that I have a negative response in me now. Breathing in, I'm aware of that. Breathing out, I calm that response. I'm not trying to reject it. I'm not getting rid of it. I'm just present to it. I'm aware. And that's all we really need to do so that it doesn't get activated. Right? So Vedana in and of itself may not be problematic if it doesn't activate. The trouble is we don't have any, at this moment, the activation again is almost immediate because we're not aware of the Vedana and right away we're in the story and I can't believe that friend just said that, but you know what I mean? And, or whatever.
It still hurt my feelings, but I let it go through. Is that, I still absorbed it.
What does that mean, hurt your feelings? I mean, words are interesting, Molly, and as a practitioner, we need to stop and really begin to go, because we say this stuff all the time, but what does it mean, hurt my feelings?
Well, a little arrow, a little story, I guess.
Yeah, but what are we, but this is important, because our words, if we don't know what the problem is, we don't know what needs to be remediated. So when you say, my friend hurt my feelings, what really happened? Your friend said or did something, or didn't do something? She what? Or he what? Or what?
Made a comment.
Okay. Hold on a second. Your friend said something.
Yes.
That's all that happened.
Yep.
She didn't take out the sledgehammer and direct it right to those things inside you call feelings.
Yep.
Oh, I thought it was something like that. You said she hurt my feelings. She said something.
Right.
I see.
And I had.
And when you said, slow down, Molly, and when she said whatever she said, by the way, is she allowed to say whatever? I mean, is she allowed to? It's a free country, right? I'm just checking. No, I don't know in Molly's country whether people are allowed to.
That's her prerogative.
It is, all right. All right. So in the realm of Molly's universe, people are allowed to speak without checking with her first. Okay. So she said something. And Molly, because of her conditioning, immediately had negative Vedana. Okay. Right. And as that flowered, because she didn't catch it at that level, as it flowered, she probably said some words to herself about what her friend had said, such as...
No word, inner thoughts.
That's what I meant. Inner thoughts, Molly might have immediately said to herself.
That was insensitive.
That was insensitive. And in Molly's world, is that allowed? No way. But also, It is a judgment, isn't it, about the quality of birds? And then when you went from just a negative Vedana to beginning to tell a story to yourself about the insensitivity of the other person, you began to feel what?
A little compassion.
No, slow on. That's not, no. What did you feel first when you said she hurt my feelings?
Anger.
Anger. And maybe a little sadness. I mean, you're hurt. Sad, angry.
I have attachment.
There we go. So it's all, can you see how it, so mindfulness lets us, if we're willing, see, most of the time we don't practice. We just explode, right? We just go with the drama, right? The practice of mindfulness is a willingness to stop and really attend to what's really going on inside me, you know. That's why we say things like breathing in. I am aware that there is this negative response in me. Right. Breathing out, I'm feeling sad. Breathing in and out, I'm feeling that. You know what I mean? We are attentive, mindful to what's going on inside us. When we are not, we just react. Right? That's just drama. Feeling, self-righteous, righteous, right? Because even when we say somebody's so insensitive, that means what? As opposed to who? Me. Who is the paragon of sensitivity. Right? Molly would never be caught being insensitive, would she? But I'm just having fun with you, but you understand in that moment how bizarre we get.
When you turn it, though, and you don't react, and you live in your conditioned nature in the past, it's mindfulness that is being practiced.
Right. We are just, again, we haven't gotten to the mind yet. Hold on. Tomorrow we will get to thoughts and emotions. We're not there yet. Right. Because before that, there is the body, the contact, right? The Vedana. That's all occurring. We're not even aware of that. By the way, how did you know your friend was saying something to you?
It was about a present.
No, just going to say, you have ears.
Yeah, I heard her.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's all that was going on. I heard my friend say some words, but because of my conditioning, I couldn't just leave it at that, right? Negative Vedana, then stories based on our, who we think, you know, and the whole history, and it's just mental formations. We'll get into all the mind tomorrow, but it's a bump. Good. So this is now our practice for the next couple of hours, and into solitary practice. Okay. I want you to be very attentive to Vedana. I want you to pick a sense organ. Okay? Seeing, or hearing, smelling, tasting, and just be mindful of that. And notice every time you are making contact through whatever sense organ you are on, see if you can be mindful of that immediate, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral feeling tone. And again, how will you know? Because I mean, sometimes it's obvious, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's what, the pleasure or the pleasant or the negative, is obvious. But if you're not clear, you just ask yourself, right? Do I want this to continue? Right? Like you're looking at a flower, or you know what I'm saying? And you go, oh, yeah, I'd like this to continue. This is good, pleasant. If you go, no, I don't like looking at this thing. unpleasant. And if it's like, yeah, could or couldn't, kind of neutral. Watch yourself, especially, see, food's a big one because that's such a big one for us. Watch your Vedana. As you see food, as you taste food, watch your response at that level. And again, watch, when you're in meditation, be very attentive to the way you're responding to your body, comfortable, uncomfortable, and how that's driving you. Things like cold, hot, again. Remember this, remember the Zen master who was asked, what is the highest truth of Buddhism? And he said, in summer I sweat, in winter I freeze. There's no Vedana in that, is there? So is everybody clear how to practice? Notice these very elemental responses that are occurring as your senses make contact. Again, I want to go into the mind maybe more toward this evening, but if stuff comes up, that's strong, you'll see it. You'll see, certain kind of story, certain kind of mind state, certain kind of, this is juicy. I could chew on this one for 10 minutes. 15, this is really a good one. Even things that obviously may go, just getting you kind of angry or something, or, you know what I'm saying? Yet there's a certain pleasure we get out of it. What is that pleasure, Molly? It's often the pleasure of self-righteousness, you know what I mean? It's like, so it's kind of twisted. So we want to see that, okay? So again, in the wonderful practice of mindfulness, there is no judgment, there's no bad good, there's no right wrong, there's no, right? We leave behind, as the Buddha said, all our worldly concerns. And we're just willing to explore. Right? Be present. We want to learn. Okay, so I'm sure in the guided meditations and everything we will be exploring this, but so in your own personal practice, solitary practice, Vedana. Ground yourself first in the body, right? Remember that, because that's most elemental. Just being in the body, in the breath, and then from that you are watchful. Is there anybody that's not clear about this? So again, it'll become more clear as you do it, and maybe this evening when we talk again, if there are any questions. But I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want you to practice and experiment, and then we can see any.
You said pick one sense organ. Do you want to pick one and stick with it, or just focus on one?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting if we had time. If we were here for, if this was a retreat on Vedana, every day to just pick a different sense organ. But I would say, kind of be somewhat selective. So maybe, when you go into the dining hall, be very attentive maybe to seeing, in the early parts of the meal when you're, picking things out and stuff like that. And then when you're sitting down and you're eating, notice that in that contact there is a positive, negative, or neutral, and that this may drive you, right? It's very important. I find continually when I'm on retreat that I take more food than I really want, because I just see something and it looks so sweet, it looks so nice, it smells so good, right? Positive Vedana, and I'm just, I'm not thinking about the guy who's going to have to eat it. Right? And then I get to the table and I start eating it, and halfway through I'm full. Right? It's strange. But that's because I realize that, I'm just when I'm up there, I'm just in that positive moment, right? And without mindful that somebody's going to have to eat all this. Right? Yeah. So good. We will stop here.